Hi, I'm Lauretta and this is my sister, Sharon. We are founders of the plant-based retreat, the Detox Barn, and we're also a comedy double act. I know, funny vegans. Shoot me now.
9 years ago, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease and got myself better using a plant-based diet. Since then, I've just fallen in love with living well.
I retrained as a natural vegan chef, and each week we'll be interviewing experts in the wellness industry, as well as sharing the highs and lows of trying to live well as single mums living together with our 2 kids. So as we do every week, how well have you lived this week, Sharon?
Yeah, I've been pretty good. Although, you know what it's like when you're in a new relationship and I'm sort of falling in love and...
Neurotic.
No, like sometimes they...
Completely and utterly neurotic.
No, I have not been neurotic.
No, you're not neurotic.
No. But, you just basically have to pretend to them that you're really, really cool until they're madly in love with you, and then you show them how mad you are.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Never let them see how mad you are.
No, not
early
until
on.
they're deep in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like all of that, sort of falling in love, opening your heart up, risking loss, I guess. Because that can be quite difficult because I'm really, really content in my life and now I'll fall in love with someone. And if that doesn't work out, I'm going to experience loss, or he will. As Brené Brown says, you're risking disappointment. You're risking things not working out. And
you took a massive risk at Christmas, didn't you? Tell them
What?
about that.
What do you mean?
Well, you had a bit of egg on your face, didn't you?
No, I didn't really. I think
you went all hell for leather.
Oh,
I
God.
took
Are we
loads
really
of
going
effort,
to tell this story?
and you were you looked like the real Keno, and that makes you vulnerable, doesn't it? When you're the real keen one, and they're not so keen.
I don't think it's quite like that, and I don't think it's not so keen. I think it's quite equally matched, hopefully. But yeah, no, basically
Defensive.
Basically, all that happened was I kind of really made an effort in the gift department for Christmas.
Tell me what you did.
I feel like he's really made a massive effort over the last sort of 5 months and brought me to amazing places, and he's really, really generous. And I felt like I kind of wanted to show my appreciation. Was
this pre-shag?
So I basically...
Joke.
I basically really went to effort on the Christmas gifts,
yes.
right? And then as we were doing sort of like sharing the gifts thing, I started to realise that, maybe I've overpitched this.
Yes.
That I look really, really keen because my gifts had like loads of thought. Because I kind of really went to town, like he's got like an MBE and it got stolen. So I went and I got a replacement MBE, and then I got a
photo of where you first were.
Yeah, a photo of like our first sort of
really sweet framed.
Really, our photo of our first weekend away, and he was sort of giving me his gifts.
And he got you chocolates.
Well, it was a bit more than chocolates. I mean, I did say to him, "Don't worry about gifts for me."
Yeah, but no one means that.
Well, no, I mean, I was saying it because he has brought me to amazing places.
But no girl means don't buy me presents at Christmas. Who means that? Nobody.
So anyway,
I mean, chocolates. I mean, it's the sort of gift you buy your neighbour or a corporate client. You don't know what to buy them and you just buy chocolates.
Well, they were vegan chocolates. They were nice chocolates. But anyway, I just felt a bit like, oh shit, like, do I sort of like hold a gift back now? Because I'm kind of starting to look really keen. And I also bought him something else, and I actually haven't told you this.
Oh, okay.
Because I was actually too embarrassed to even tell you.
A house? Bought him a house? What else did you buy him? Were you embarrassed that you spent so much money, or?
It's not money because I didn't spend that much money. It's just the thought.
What did you buy?
I bought him this handkerchief, and then on the handkerchief I had embroidered on it, like to the man of my dreams or something like that. I'm actually going red talking about it now.
You put to the man of my dreams?
Yeah, something like that. Better late than never.
He's going to blow his nut. Oh. So maybe it sounds like you're talking about him in the bedroom department.
So like
you put better late than never on his hanky.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Better. I've met him late in my life, but better late than never.
Oh, okay, right, fine. So does he use hankies? What kind of?
Yeah, he does use a hanky. He's a man that always has a handkerchief. And another thing.
How old is he? 90. He always has a hanky when it has to be embroidered. From the days in the Navy SEAL.
And the other thing he always has, when we go away on weekends, he's always got a shoehorn.
Oh my God. A shoehorn?
A shoehorn and a hanky and an umbrella.
I always bring my shoehorn wherever I go, and my trouser press while I do the Times crossword. And then I pull out my pipe. And I also notice in a lot of hotels lately, they don't have a soft stool to put your legs up on. So I'll get a soft stool, get my hanky ready in case I need a little snooze. Does he know how scatty you are? I mean,
Thank God we're never going to live together because that would really put him
Well,
off.
is it for posh shoes, the shoehorn? Or
No, like for his trainers, whatever.
he uses a shoehorn for trainers. I mean, does he know you? Have you shown that side? Have you used knickers to put up your hair in front of him?
No,
you haven't done that.
I'm waiting until he's way deep in.
Much
deep in
deeper.
love.
Don't
much
never
deeper.
let him hear this.
I think he does know how scatty I am because if we are away together for a weekend, he sort of starts tidying up around me, starts putting my stuff away.
Right, yes, everything's got a place. Everything's got a place.
But he's very organised. Shoehorn, handkerchief.
Gaviscon. Always to the ready. Can't eat what I used to. Viagra. Always got that on me. I'll keep going like a racehorse. Okay. On that note.
The whole point was about vulnerability and putting myself out there and risking disappointment. And yeah, I did look like a bit of a at Christmas, but that's good.
That is good.
Anyway, this week we are going to be speaking to Ocean Robbins.
He is an absolute giant in the plant-based movement.
Ocean Robbins is an American entrepreneur, professor, and author of the 31-Day Food Revolution. He's best known for co-founding the Food Revolution Network, which has over 500,000 members. The network promotes a whole food, plant-based diet. Robbins was born to John Robbins, author of Diet for a New America. He is the grandson of Irvin Robbins, the co-founder of the gigantic dynasty Baskin-Robbins. He's received numerous awards, including the National Jefferson Award for Outstanding Public Service and the Freedom's Flame Award.
Hello and welcome, Ocean, to our podcast. We're delighted that you're here this evening. I absolutely loved your book, The 31-Day Food Revolution. And what I loved so much about it was the fact that it was so accessible and so easy to decipher, and all the questions that you ask yourself, like, is soya good? Is it bad? It was so brilliantly and simply put. So thank you. It was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, it was great. And it's such an interesting story, and your background, obviously, your lineage, your grandfather creating this sort of dynasty Baskin-Robbins from where you are today. Because I found that really interesting, because you're at two different ends of the spectrum, so to speak. Tell us how that was. And, obviously it's probably more your father's story, but that journey from sort of, I guess, walking away from a ice cream dynasty to what you've both created today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, for those who don't know the whole story, my grandpa founded Baskin-Robbins, and my dad John grew up with an ice cream cone-shaped swimming pool in the backyard.
Oh my God.
31 flavors of ice cream in the freezer. And he was groomed from his early childhood to one day join in running the family company. Mm-hmm. But when he was in his early 20s, he was offered that chance, and he said no. And he walked away from a path that was practically paved with gold and ice cream to, as we jokingly say in our family, follow his own rocky road. And he ended up moving with my mom to a little island off the coast of Canada. They built a one-room log cabin. They grew most of their own food. They lived on less than $500 a year. Wow. They practiced yoga and meditation for several hours a day. And they named their kid Ocean. And they almost named me Kale, by the way. And this was way before Kale was cool.
Yeah.
On behalf of my social life, I'm grateful they took the more conservative route when they named their son. But we did eat a lot of kale and cabbage and carrots and other veggies from the garden. And as I got a little older, we ended up moving to California in the United States, where my dad began researching a book that came out in 1987. It was called Diet for a New America. And it looked at how our food choices affect our health and our world. And the media had a lot of fun with the story. They called him the rebel without a cone. They called him the prophet of nonprofit. Here's this guy who, walked away from this massive, the largest ice cream company on the planet to instead become an activist for health, right? And so we received tens of thousands of letters from readers thanking him for changing their lives, in many cases feeling that his work had saved their lives. And beef consumption in the United States in the 5 years after my dad's first book came out dropped by 20%.
That's amazing.
And obviously there were a lot of factors at play there, but his work was one of them. And interestingly, one of his readers ended up being my grandpa, my dad's dad, Ocean Robbins, who had always eaten the standard American diet plus a double scoop of ice cream on top. And now he had the standard American diseases. He had diabetes and heart disease, serious weight issues. And his doctors told him he didn't have long to live unless he made big changes.
Wow.
And he ended up making those changes because they gave him a copy of my dad's book, which he read.
Wow.
And he ended up giving up ice cream, giving up sugar, eating way less animal products and processed foods and way more whole plant foods. And he got results. He completely reversed his diabetes. He completely reversed his heart disease. He lost a bunch of weight. His golf game improved 7 strokes. He lived 19 more healthy years. And so we really have seen in our family what happens when we follow the status quo. My dad's Uncle Bert Baskin, my grandpa's brother-in-law and business partner, died of heart disease at the age of 54. He was one of the most successful entrepreneurs in world history, but he didn't have his health, and he ended up leaving his family that he loved without a dad, without a husband, because he lost his life. And my grandpa was on a similar path, but made a different choice.
Right.
And so we've also seen what can happen when we make a change. And so I was inspired by my dad's example, of course, by his integrity, by the impact he was making. And I decided I wanted to do something to reach out to my generation. So at 16, I founded a nonprofit called Yes, working with young leaders around the world, focusing on leadership development and health and sustainability. And we wound up working with leaders in over 65 countries. And as I traveled the globe and worked internationally, I came to see over the course of 20 years that everybody eats. And that what we're eating all over the world is having this huge impact on our planet, on our rainforests, on our ecosystems, on our climate, and on our health and our economies in every country on the planet. And so I eventually decided the way I could make the biggest impact was to focus on food directly. So 12 years ago, I left the nonprofit and ended up founding Food Revolution Network with my dad, now my colleague, John Robbins. Our mission is healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for all. We have over 700,000 members. And, our goal is to really change the way that the world eats.
Amazing.
So just quickly going back to the story about your dad, just a couple of questions. Firstly, what was his impulse at the beginning to make that decision to move away from the ice cream? Because he wasn't sick. So what made him do that? And secondly, when the book came out, did he make loads of money and then create a swimming pool that was shaped like a broccoli?
So what motivated him was his Uncle Bert was dying of heart disease.
Right.
And he didn't know then what we know now about the depth of the impact that food has on health. But enough was known already to know that ice cream was no health food.
Yeah, yeah.
And that eating sugar and gobs of saturated butter fat isn't good for your health. And he had been out and seen some of the dairy farms and seen where the dairy was coming from. And he also knew that, let's just say that modern factory farms are not something Walt Disney would have wanted to make a movie about.
Yeah.
And despite the pretty pictures on the stores that showed dairy cows grazing in open pasture, that was not their reality. So he didn't want to spend his life selling a product that would contribute to more kids losing their dads like his cousins were losing theirs, and more animals living in factory farms.
Amazing.
And so he decided he had to make a choice for integrity. And, it was not one that my grandpa appreciated. Yeah, my grandpa had spent his entire life building a business. He was one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. He wanted to share this life achievement with his only son. My grandpa was a very talented businessman. No question about that. And my dad showed some talent growing up, and my grandpa wanted him to put it to good use to carry on the family legacy and build the empire. And when my dad said no, my grandpa sold the company, and it went downhill, as far as his values. Prior to that point, their expansion had been totally sustainable. that when my grandpa sold the company, there were, I think, 2,000 stores, and not one of them had ever closed. They were all successful. But the new company was more aggressive in its expansion approach, and they started taking on store owners who weren't really equipped for the job, and some of them lost money, and they were willing to do that in the name of growth. And my grandpa didn't want that. He wanted everyone who was involved to have it be a successful experience. And so, he had integrity in his way. It was just a very different time, and he was shaped by different mindsets and different values. And but from my dad's perspective, he wanted to do something that would actually contribute to uplifting the health and well-being of humanity and the planet. And he didn't think he could do that while running an ice cream company. And people say, why couldn't you just take the money and use it for good? It's like, well, it's not like it was offered to him. It's not like his dad said, here's $1 billion. Do you want it? Blank check. Like there were strings attached. Yeah. He would have had to spend his life selling ice cream for a good many decades before he'd have a lot of money like that, And so he chose his own path. And I'm proud of him for that, because the thing is that there are some things in life that are more important than money. We live in a society where money has been in some ways made more important than human life, human health, or even the earth itself. We worship money in some respects, and when you see human behavior, that's how we act. And I personally think that one of the things we're discovering today is that we're better than that. We're deeper than that. We actually care. Most of us want to make a living, not make a killing. And even senior executives in the major food brands that I've talked with, they don't stay up all night trying to figure out how to make our kids fat and sick. They are trying to make a living in an industry where profits and integrity don't always go together. In fact, they're often at cross purposes. Yeah. And so my dad didn't want to spend his life in that, and I'm proud of him for that. And yes, he had some success from his books, thank goodness. And our family had some resources. It's an interesting story since you mentioned it, because in 2008. My dad's life savings were obliterated in the Madoff scandal. And, so he had built up a little nest egg, some resources, and I was counting on that. I have special needs twins. I was counting on that to sort of support them. And so I was working at the nonprofit up to that point for 20 years. And suddenly it was like, wow, my parents weren't sure if they could keep their home. And I decided at that point that I wanted to see if there were ways to make a good living, making a big difference, and kind of scaling up impact. And frankly, Food Revolution Network was born out of that quest, because I've been in the nonprofit space before, and Food Revolution is a social profit endeavor. So we do make money and we pay people, and our goal is to scale that, and we want to do that in a way where healthy profits come from healthy food and healthy lives and a healthy planet, and to demonstrate kind of what's possible in that with those goals. And that's how we're operating, and I'm so grateful to be able to do work that really, truly matters, and that also supports my family.
Well, absolutely. And, we do have to earn money, and, to have that sort of mission and to be able to make money to provide for your family, that's the ultimate. I feel like that as well. I feel quite privileged when we run retreats. It's not going to make me a millionaire, but I'm making money doing something I love that's having a good impact. We've had all sorts of people on our podcast. We had Paul Dolan, who's written a book called Happiness by Design. And just as you mentioned that, how we're so brought up to value money, and the stats tell us that money doesn't make us happy, because otherwise, you wouldn't have millionaires killing themselves or movie stars killing themselves or whatever. Yeah. That actually, as long as your needs are met and you have a bit, and you want to look after your twins and all of that, any surplus money over a certain amount actually doesn't equate to happiness. I was struck by a few things you said at the beginning, especially about your dad turning away from that and living off $500 a month or whatever it was. And I felt quite tingly when you said that, because I thought he's walked away from something that actually would have probably made him really miserable. And he's there doing yoga, and I'm probably romanticizing it, but he's there doing yoga every day. He's with the love of his life, and he's living with integrity. And that is what creates happiness. But a very difficult decision to have been made by him. And obviously, I'm sure he's had a massive influence on you, and how amazing that you're now working together. So thank you for sharing that story. It's an unbelievable story. And how was it growing up? Because I read a bit in your book that obviously sort of meal times with your grandpa must have been difficult or tense. How did you navigate that? Yeah,
it was a little complicated. I remember my grandma, on my dad's side was not a black belt in flexibility. And one time we went to visit them at their summer home up in Oregon. And in advance, she let us know, she said, "You will not be cooking tofu in my kitchen."
Wow.
Now, I've known vegans who are like, "Oh, you will not be cooking meat in my kitchen." But she was kind of turning the tables. And so like she was mortally offended at the prospect of, having tofu in her kitchen. So we ended up having to rent, an apartment for the visit nearby so we could actually make our own meals.
Wow.
And we would bring them over picnic style and have dinner together, because we weren't allowed to cook it there. So we'd bring it over and just eat stuff, that we'd cooked earlier. So we weren't going to let food stop us from being a family and visiting, but certainly it created a bit of tension. And I think she maybe made one meal that we could eat, which I remember appreciating. I believe it was ratatouille, as a matter of fact. But it was a little challenging, for sure. And, I think that, every family that has food differences has to figure out how to navigate that. And my perspective is that we tend to navigate food differences the same way we navigate political differences and, every other kind of difference, which is basically when there's love, when there's respect, that carries the day. But, if people can't respect each other as humans, then that's going to show up in every place where they have different orientations. And so, this was a family that was actually struggling more on the love front than on the food front.
I think that's really insightful. And also it sort of ties into, I know you talk about it a bit in the book as well, how to sort of influence people around you without being annoying. Like, we come from a big Irish family that they grew up on farms and real sort of, meat. And when we first became vegan, I felt like we were quite annoying. They were like, "Oh God, the vegans are coming for dinner. What the hell are we going to cook them?"
Or whenever I cook dinner, they always joke, "Oh, we'll eat before we come," all that kind of stuff. But actually now they absolutely love the food that I cook them. And my dad especially, he always sends me little articles from the newspaper about another vegan movement or plant-based food or what scientists are coming up with next. So,
or entrepreneurs that are vegan. Yeah, they have slowly started to really, really support it. But it's quite a crucial point that you do talk about it in the book about, not lecturing people, sort of slowly showing them the way or showing them some alternatives or sharing some healthy ideas without being that, cliche, annoying vegan.
Yeah, I think that, for many people, to have a healthy family relationship across differences is there's a few principles that I think are important to embody. One is love people no matter what they eat, because they feel that. And no one likes to have an ideology shoved down their throat. If you get into a power struggle, and goodness knows, no family I've ever seen has power struggles, right? If you get into a power struggle, then it becomes about people's autonomy, people's dignity, or even people's importance or significance in a relationship. And if that's what's at stake, they will do anything to win. And if winning means eating the steak or the whatever it is, or even getting you to change, they'll be hell-bent on it, because what's really at stake is their core integrity and worth as a human, right? In the relationship. But if what's at stake is their health or the future of the planet, then you get a very different outcome, right? So I think that we need to de-escalate places where inflammation makes the whole thing harder by letting people really know that we love them no matter what. If you're somebody who wants to eat healthier than somebody around you, you start off by loving them and not having a holier than thou kind of attitude. Yeah. Like, I'm better than you and I don't eat the crap you eat. Who likes that, right? Who's going to respond well to that? But if it's hey, I'm doing something I love and I love to share it, and I also totally love and respect you, that's a lot easier to be around, right? And when it comes to family gatherings, I often advocate for like, potluck style, or, build your own burrito where you've got a bunch of different fixings and people can add what they want so that there's room for diversity. And, you can really respect that. And, some vegans don't want to cook meat products, so they shouldn't, but they can still welcome other people doing what they need, to feel good. So I think that those principles can be helpful. And then, I think that another principle is walking your talk, obviously, and modeling it, because you never know when that impact is going to show up in somebody's life, when they've seen you healthy and well and vibrant and alive. That matters, and I know friends who go to their, high school reunion or college reunion 30, 40, 50 years later, and people are like, oh my God, you look so great. What's your secret? And it's like, well, let me tell you, it's a good opening, right? And the truth is that people who eat healthier tend to be more lean and fit and vibrant and energetic. And that's part of the point, right? So I think that shows, and that's the best way to influence people is by example, and just by being a messenger of vibrant health. And then, you can also, refer people if they want to learn more. Don't necessarily try to tell them all the facts. Refer them to experts. Now, even for me, like I'm considered fairly knowledgeable about food by most people in my life. We have 700,000 people opening my emails, every other day. But when it comes to my friends and family, a lot of them would rather hear from Dr. Joel Fuhrman or Dr. Dean Ornish or, some other expert out there than me. So I can give them those resources and they'll listen. But if it was just me, they'd be like, oh, that's just him. He's just, he's just doing his thing, right? Yeah. So, and this is true for a lot of people. So putting people in touch with experts, sharing resources can be wonderful. Also look for openings. Like if somebody is concerned about their health, if they start talking about being afraid of getting Alzheimer's, or even joke nervously about forgetting where their car keys are, there may be an opening to be like, gosh, I've just heard you joking about that. And it's a funny joke, but I'm also wondering, like, is this a point of real concern for you? And the reason I'm asking is because, I know some people who are neurologists who are actually saying that 90% of Alzheimer's can be prevented, and we can then have that conversation and say, hey, are you interested in learning more about that? Because maybe that's a fear you don't need to have, And
is that true? 90%?
Yeah. So Drs. Dean and Aisha Sherzai, from Loma Linda University in California, which is, Loma Linda is the only blue zone in the United States. It's a region where people live about 10 years longer than the national average, and it's been studied extensively. So they've done a lot of research on Alzheimer's and the causes of it, and they've concluded that yes, about 90% of Alzheimer's cases can be prevented based on an overwhelming body of data with diet and lifestyle changes. About almost half of that delta is from food choices, and about almost half of it is from exercise and smoking cessation and stress reduction and challenging your mind. So all those things kind of go together. And the bottom line is, yes, 90% is their conclusion based on a great deal of research. And it's never been fully borne out because nobody has done all the things they recommend on a mass scale. But if you put studies together and say, okay, you get a 50% reduction on a mass scale with certain diet changes, you get a 40% reduction with certain exercise changes, you get a 20% reduction with mental health stimulation, you get a 20% reduction with stress reduction, you sort of do the math on all that and put it together and you end up at about 90%, which interestingly is the same number that Dr. Dean Ornish has concluded and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn have concluded from their published studies that we could reduce heart disease. In fact, we can reverse about 80% of heart disease when it's already in place with diet and lifestyle changes. And prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We also have studies showing we could prevent up to 50% of cancers, virtually all cases of type 2 diabetes, and most obesity. So put all that together and you start to ask, well, what would a healthy eater die of then? And
old age.
I mean, people just ripen like fine wine. I don't know. No, I mean, I think obviously there are other things where being human is a terminal condition, but we're all going to die, but we don't have to die miserable, and we don't have to die too soon.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, most people are living more years than ever chronically sick. The average senior in my country, in the United States, is on like 15 prescription drugs per year. And, we have 85 and over half of our people have Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So, I don't know anybody who wants to die that way.
And that's why I asked you about the Alzheimer's, because that is probably the worst way to die. And we are all going to die. But as you say, it's about living well for as long as possible. If we're going to have 80 years, it'd be great to have a good 80 years, wouldn't it? And the Alzheimer's, is it in line with everything else? No processed foods, no processed sugars, plant-based diet. Is it the same message?
Yes. The interesting thing is that the same diet and lifestyle choices that prevent Alzheimer's also prevent heart disease and cancer and diabetes and obesity. And so the bottom line is, what are we talking about here? We're talking about eating a whole foods, plant-centered diet with lots of fiber, lots of fruits and vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and minimal to no added sugars or processed foods, minimal to no animal products. There's a bit of controversy about fish. Some studies say that people do better as pescatarians. Some people say that vegans who get their omega-3s and the appropriate supplements do better. The jury's out on that one from a health perspective. From an environmental perspective, there's no question vegans have a lighter ecological footprint. But when you put all that together, we could slash our rates of chronic disease dramatically. And then we could add to that exercise. As Dr. Ornish says, we need to eat better, stress less, move more, and love more. So that's kind of the simple tools. And so, having more love and human connection is critical for our health. Having less stress, ability to reduce stress with mindfulness practice, yoga, meditation, prayer, all kinds of activities can be beneficial towards calming the mind, calming the stresses and the cortisol levels, and bringing more peace and ease into a being. Even therapy can be good for health. So you put all this together and you get tremendous potency. The combination is really where you get the breakthroughs, because a chain is as strong as its weakest link. And for most people in the modern world, food really is that weakest link. But when you shore that up, then you have the other weakest links to build in as well. When you put all that together, you get incredible results.
I think the problem that we have is that a lot of society are confused, and we see so many different stories about what's good, what's bad. And I think that's what you did brilliantly in the book, actually, is that you really look at what is good and what is bad, and how do we optimize our health.
And how do we make decisions with so many mixed messages from marketing campaigns? We're inundated.
So people are paralyzed. They think we might as well just carry on as we're doing, because 1 minute red wine's good for you, then it's bad for you, and then coffee's
eggs
good.
are good or eggs are bad. It's just endless. Or fish, as you said.
And also we've got the social narrative surrounding kale's boring, cake is fun. How do we get away from that narrative?
Well, so those are a couple different things. One is the psychology of healthy eating. There's this kind of belief that, healthy eaters don't live longer. It just feels like it because their life drags on, right? That, and I'll say that for about 40% of the population, food is their number one source of pleasure in their lives. So, you think about that and you think about taking that away from them, and that's a big deal. For a lot of people, it's terrifying, actually, for a lot of people. I mean, they look forward to their meals, and they feel more in their body than ever when they're eating something, right? So, and I love pleasure. I'm all about it. I just think I want healthy pleasure to come from healthy food, and the reality is that there is more pleasure to be had in a body that works, in a cardiovascular system that's flowing. Even your taste buds. The average senior has lost half their taste buds, so they don't have nearly as much pleasure from food. If you ever think, remember how good something tasted when you were a kid, and it just doesn't taste as good now, that may actually be more about you than the thing. If your taste buds have faded out a bit. And so why do taste buds fade out? Well, it has to do with circulation. And so when your arteries are clogged, when your blood is fatty with saturated fat, then it clogs things, and you can lose function, sensitivity, pleasure, vitality, aliveness, which impacts your ability to enjoy your life. And so then the vicious circle of that is that people who have less pleasure and vitality and joy look to food more for their pleasure, which then, if their foods that they're getting pleasure from are and also the thing is, when your taste buds fade, you're more likely to want things that give you a hit of more intensity. So you go for more sugar, more salt, more fats, to fill the gap, because you're not actually tasting it as much as you used to. And so we can break that cycle and create positive feedback loops by leaning into healthy pleasures that rewire our brains and our taste buds. And there's actually studies showing that people who eat kale, for example, after about 10 times, their saliva changes. They secrete a protein in their saliva that actually makes it taste sweeter. So the first time somebody eats kale, it may taste bitter. 10th time, not as much. It'll actually taste sweeter, because your physiology is changing. And as well, there's habits that form that make things that are familiar more comfortable. We see this with music. I hear songs on the radio, and the first time I'm like, what a horrible song. I hope I never hear that again. And a year later, I'm singing it to myself in the shower, because I've heard it so many times that it's familiar and it's comfortable, right? And so that kind of same principle is true with food. It's incredible how much familiarity begets friendliness when it comes to food patterns. So the key thing here is to develop healthy habits that help you enjoy your healthy foods. And the same is true with food preparation. It's a skill set, and so if you pick up an instrument you've never played before, and you pick it up and you don't have any lessons, you're going to sound bad. I don't care how skillful you are as a musician. You're probably going to sound bad the first time because you don't know what you're doing, right? And so the same is true with a new way of eating. If you just dive into it and be like, okay, I'm going to eat healthy, and you don't know what you're doing, the odds are it's not going to taste very good, and it's going to be a lot of work, and you'll be really confused. You'll go to the store, you don't know what to buy, you don't know what to do with it, you don't know how to prepare it. And so the key is to know that, get a little coaching or support. It could be as simple as recipe books, or it could be a membership community or a course or other resources, or a coach or a friend. And then you know that it's going to take some time. Developing any new skill takes time and builds fluency. And it's like muscles get stronger with use. Well, the same is true with healthy habits. So it's going to take some time to find the recipes you like, to learn how to prepare them, quickly, to learn how to cook them in quantity, to learn how to make the right amount so nothing goes to waste, but everything is useful. And to learn about batch cooking, to learn about buying in bulk and shopping in quantity and cooking it ahead on the weekends, to learn about which restaurants serve the foods you want and how to order special things, even off the menu, that they can prepare. Learning how to meet your needs in a way that works for you takes practice. But once you get that going, it gets to be autopilot. And the truth is, it isn't your willpower that shapes your destiny. It's your habits. It's what you do day in and day out, whether you're thinking about it or not, whether you're trying or not, that really shapes who you become. So those are some key principles. And I think there was another question you had as well. Did I answer both of them yet?
I think you did, actually. That was brilliantly put, because we talk a lot about this at our retreat. People sort of go, oh, I'm just not a disciplined person, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. We're very sort of passionate about the stories you tell yourself, and the stories you tell yourself are only created from the habits that you do repeatedly, and you become the person that you repeatedly do. And it's as simple as that. And if you can reprogram yourself to do something on a regular basis, you then don't have to think about it. It's your only automatic choice. And then you become the person you want to be. As you were just saying, the foods that they're eating, they're so designed with sugar, fat, salt. They do become addicted. It's like being addicted to heroin. Of course you've got no willpower. If you're going to eat that stuff, you're going to become addicted. As you're saying, you talk about it a lot in your book as well. It's becoming free of that and knowing what to do and knowing what to order. And also just reflecting on sort of going out to restaurants. That can be quite tricky, actually. They do have amazing vegan menus now everywhere you go, but they're not necessarily healthy. And it's about still having a life, still being able to socialize. But how do I choose like the healthiest option? It's something that you kind of have to think about a little bit when you're not cooking from home.
Yeah, absolutely. You do. We live in a toxic food culture where, all around us, hyper processed, foods that are grown with pesticides and hormones and antibiotics, that are loaded with factory farmed animal products, that are loaded with added sugars, are rampant. It's normal. And so you actually have to really kind of work upstream to do something different, because the path of least resistance is killing us, but it's also normal. And so, the good news is there's an incredible amount to gain from making a change. And when you do so, you actually make the path easier for others. You help to normalize a new way of eating that actually shifts culture, which I think is quite exciting. But it also, there's no question about it, like, humans are very social creatures. We're herd animals to a great extent. We're heavily influenced by people around us, by norms around us. We tend to think that something is acceptable or appropriate because it's what's done. Why do we, love pets, cats, and dogs and cherish them and call them part of our family, and then eat pigs and cows and call them dinner and treat them horribly in factory farms along the way, right? It's just because it's socialized. Like, there's absolutely nothing about pigs, for example. They're actually more intelligent than cats or dogs, right? But it's just what's normal, right? And so we are this way. Yet most of us would never think of eating a monkey, or certainly a human, right? But so where do we draw the line, and what do we think is acceptable or not? And, I think that a lot of us are profoundly enculturated in ways that we don't even think twice about stuff. And, that's good a lot of the time, because you don't have the brain power to think of everything from scratch, right? So we kind of like, okay, humans have figured out that certain plants are poisonous, so we just don't eat them. We don't even have to worry that the supermarket's going to be loaded up with poisonous vegetables, because we know that's not the case, because humans have learned some stuff. So, we build on that, but unfortunately, humans have also learned some really bad habits that are destroying our lives and our planet, and that's why we've got to actually develop some new habits ourselves now that challenge that status quo and do something different.
So talking about going with the herd, what about children? Sharon and I, we're sisters and we live together and we've got 2 kids.
Not together.
We both got divorced. But my daughter comes back and all her teenage friends are eating junk food and not eating great. How do we encourage our children to be healthy when it means going away from the herd?
Because she wants to desperately fit in. Like, even one time you were having a friend round for dinner and you were going to cook them some pasta, and she said, please don't cook from scratch. Don't make the sauce from scratch. Just buy it in the jar. Because she just wanted to do what all her friends do.
She wanted to be normal. So I actually made the sauce and put it in a jar and pretended it was bought. And then they ate it. And then I said, did you like it? And they go, we loved it. I went, I made it.
Yeah.
But, that's to the extent that she wants to fit in with all the norms of what her friends do. And it's really hard.
It is hard. And, young people have their own unique sets of challenges in that way, because, young people are trying to figure out who the heck they are on this planet and how they fit into the world. And so many people feel awkward, or, I just want a sense of belonging, I think all of us do, but teenagers and sort of young people in general have that particularly strong. And am I okay? Am I acceptable? And so to be deviant from the norm around food can feel like a mortal threat to people's sense of survival and inclusion in the herd, so to speak, right? So, every parent has to navigate how to support youngsters in those dynamics. And partly it's absolutely, understand the human needs at play and work with them. Don't just make somebody wrong or bad for wanting to fit in. That's a basic human need, right? Yeah. And at the same time, try to help people not compromise their core values along the way, whatever those are for them, right? So not everybody at 15 or 12 or 25 cares about health much. Most young people think they're going to live forever until they realize they won't. So all of us have some point in our lives when we face our mortality. And for some people, it's quite late in life. For other people, it's quite early. But most of the time, it happens later than not. And that's a moment when everything changes and you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I could die. And suddenly you take life less for granted.
That's me every night.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
And did you ever rebel, Ocean? Did you ever go to your dad, oh, I'm going to go and get drunk and
burgers?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I remember having a visit with my grandparents. They actually flew me down for a visit when I was 12. And they they like took me out on this big shopping spree, and I got all my year's worth of toys and clothes and stuff, and then they sat me down and they were like, "So we hope you've enjoyed your time here." I was like, "Oh yes, it's been so fun." And they were like, "So we know that your parents are a bit unusual in some of the ways that they think, and some of the ways that they eat, and some of the ways that they live, and they may not be providing for you as well as we might think they should be. And we just want you to know that you always have us here for you. And we also want you to know that if ever, let's just say that people don't always follow the same path as their parents. Your dad didn't. And so if you ever decide that you want to go a different way than your parents, just know that we're here to support you in that." And I truly thought, I was a big Star Wars fan at the time, and I thought that I was like Luke Skywalker with Darth Vader, and Darth Vader is saying, "Luke, come to the dark side," and I was like, I could hear the breathing, and I was like, I was polite, but I was extremely clear. I was like, "Well, thank you so much, and I'm very happy with my own values, and I like the way I eat at home," So it was an interesting moment. But, I felt like I had a lot to rebel against, but I wanted to rebel against child abuse. I wanted to rebel against racism. I wanted to rebel against humans destroying the planet. I wanted to rebel against societal norms that crush the human spirit and lead us to misery and sickness. I didn't really want to rebel against my parents, who were, as best they could, trying to live their own values in a good way on this planet. It just didn't resonate. And certainly I was raised in a context where, my dad used to quote Thoreau about marching to the beat of your own drummer. And I felt that there was a core value of, being accountable to the highest truth rather than just following any established norms, even those of your parents who were rebels themselves, As I got older, I was so grateful that I didn't waste a lot of time and energy, rebelling against people whose values were deeply aligned with my own.
Yeah.
I think that, and we also always need to find our way to differentiate. And, I'm still figuring out how to differentiate. I don't see the world the same way that my parents do. That's sort of natural. Buckminster Fuller said children are our elders in universe time. They're born into a world more evolved than we can even imagine, and we can only glimpse it through their eyes. So I think that every new generation sees the world through new eyes and has fresh perspectives, and it is sort of the job of that generation to kind of lead the charge for the evolution of our species. And to older generations, that won't always look smart or wise. And it can be clunky, but it is the historical mandate. And sometimes rebellion is kind of an expression of that desire to be worthy of that, I think, sacred responsibility that every new generation has. And I just hope to be able to nurture, in my kids, the ability to rebel against the right things.
Amazing. You need to be like president. You're just amazing. I'm just like listening to you going, this is just so well put together about sort of rebelling against stuff and not your parents, who obviously were full of integrity and sort of leading you in a very illuminate path. Yeah. There's one story that stood out to me in your book, actually, about your dad sort of bringing you out for steak. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. So, I was raised vegetarian. In fact, I was a bit of a militant vegetarian. And I remember in second grade, going through lunchtime recess, and opening up all my friends' lunch boxes and interrogating them. And then if they had meat products in there, like kind of shaming them for it. And one of my best friends, Damien, had a roast beef sandwich. And I asked him if he believed in the death penalty for murder. And
you're an intense kid. Oh, wow.
I was 7 years old, and he didn't even know what I was talking about. He was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, do you realize that there's murder in your lunchbox?" And, he looked at me kind of funny. I was like, "At least my body's not a graveyard." And, we ended up in a fight. at the end of which his roast beef sandwich was in the garbage, and I was in the principal's office. And I had to think long and hard about how I was an advocate for compassion, and here I was getting in a fist fight with my best friend over his lunchbox. And I think that although I learned that that didn't work, I continued to hold a certain degree of militancy and sense of separation around food. And then I think I was about 10, and my dad was actually concerned that it was negatively impacting my social life, my ability to feel connected to other people. And because I had never eaten meat, I had an attitude as if it was not food, it was poison, it was evil. I looked at it almost like some people would look at human flesh, like you just don't eat that. And my dad wanted me to recognize that for many humans, this is food, and even an important and cherished part of food and nutrition, and that I could, do better to have some understanding for that. So he said, Ocean, I want to do something you might not expect. I want you to go out for steak with me. And I was like, what? No, you raised me better than this. And there was a rebellion moment, but he said, look, all I ask is that you take one bite. So we went to like the finest restaurant in Victoria, British Columbia, where we lived at the time. And it was called the Parrot House. It was like on the 18th floor of this, of this building. And and he ordered me a filet mignon. And, I looked at it with disgust and wrinkled my nose. And he said, Ocean, you agreed. Like, I need you to do this. So I took a bite and then I spat it out. And he said, no, you need to eat it. So I took another bite and I actually swallowed it. And I looked at him. I was like, are you satisfied now? He was like, okay, you did what I asked. Thank you. And, that's the only meat I've ever eaten. But I did it. I ate a bite of steak. And it didn't taste bad, honestly. It was kind of weird, kind of bloody. But I could see the texture being interesting and the mouthfeel and all that. And I think that my dad was teaching me something kind of important, actually, in that Martin Luther King said, you have no moral authority with those who can feel your underlying contempt. And when we judge people, when we pathologize people, we lose moral standing in the relationship. And, I look at that now and I say, you know what, I couldn't be doing the work I do today if people could feel that I had contempt for them. Like there's a lot of people who don't eat the way I do, who don't eat perfectly, a lot of people who feel shame about their food choices, a lot of people who actually struggle maybe even to eat the foods that they know are in their best interest. A lot of us are addicted to unhealthy foods and have not the best habits and feel shame about that. And as somebody who wants to help people move and grow in positive, constructive, healthy ways, the last thing I would want to do is make people feel more shame, more guilt, more self-doubt. I want to help people feel good about themselves. I want people to like who they are. And I want people to make healthy choices from a place of self-love, not from a place of deprivation or, self-flagellation, because the truth is that I don't think we're going to stick with healthy habits if they are associated with self-hate. So how do we create healthy habits that are linked to self-love and dignity and joy even? That, I think, is how we make the habits stick long-term.
And that's an interesting point as well, because, to talk about alcohol a little bit, our social narratives around that is it's joyful, it's fun, it's what connects us. And it's getting to the root of some of those stories and untangling them a bit so that people start to associate actually, and I know because I did used to drink alcohol, like I've given up about 8-9 years ago now. But I used to love a drink, and I used to love red wine. I used to love a glass of champagne, and I loved the kind of ceremony of it and the smelling and the fanciness and the celebration in it. And we talk a lot about this as well with our guests, because I'm finding a lot of guests now, especially as they're getting older, are giving up and going, this doesn't serve me. But to get to that point is really difficult with the social norms and narratives. Not only is it not looked down upon, it's actually actively encouraged. And if you don't drink, there's something wrong with you. I mean, it's so on the other way. And it's being able to kind of, we first gave up drinking, because we do everything together. We gave up together. After a few months, I then did naturally start to link, the taste of the wine with feeling like shit, a headache. And then I started to link not drinking with, oh, I feel great in the morning. I get a good night's sleep. But that takes a while of linking those good habits to serve us. Do you have any advice on how that happens or how to impose it on yourself?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like I said, habits are key. And, the best time to repair a roof is when the sun is shining, not when it's pouring rain. The best time to build a healthy habit isn't at the end of a long work day when you're exhausted and you're trying to fight yourself off from not opening that package of cookies in the cupboard. The best time to develop a healthy habit is on the weekend, or when you've got a little bit of time, when you do some menu planning and do a big shopping and cook in bulk for the week ahead and store things and get things ready so that it's easy to do the right thing. It's when you clear away your cupboards and get rid of those cookies so you're not tempted, and you make sure that you have healthy alternatives available so that when you are stressed and exhausted, you have something to turn to. And, and then find the comfort foods that can comfort you in healthy ways. So, for example, a lot of people are turned to comfort foods when they're stressed or exhausted or hurting, and they get a little bit of comfort from that pleasure and even from the dopamine hit that comes from the sugar or whatever else that might be in there. But you can also get pleasure from other things. For example, blueberries, not always in season, sometimes kind of expensive, but they're one of my favorite indulgences. And, I could late at night, if I'm having to work late and I'm tired and I want a little something to perk me up, like I could chow down on a basket of blueberries just fine, and when you get a little more advanced with it, you could actually snack on other things that are healthy, and you don't have to feel guilty about snacking on broccoli, late at night. So, there are things you can do when you learn what works for you. The key thing is, I think of it a little bit like being a painter. You have, when you go healthy, you take a lot of colors out of the box, so to speak. You're taking a lot of things you might be used to off the menu, right? And so then you have to focus in on how to use what's left better, but if you focus on whole foods and plant-based, for example, you learn there's all kinds of wonderful, amazing, delicious ways to eat and thrive. But it does take that new skill development. So having patience and focusing on the big picture. You don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good. If you slip up a little bit, that isn't a reason to hate yourself. It's a reason to love yourself even more and get back on the horse that threw you, so to speak, and keep going. So it isn't a single step that makes the difference. It's a lot of steps taken in a consistent direction. So chart your course. Know what you're leaning into, know what you want, and focus on your big why. I mean, for some people, they're pushed by pain. For other people, they're pulled by vision. Some people are trying to stop feeling like crap. They want to feel better. They don't want to feel so bad. Other people are pulled by vision. They want to dance at their grandkid's wedding. They want to run a marathon. They want to hike far. They want to be able to, be vibrant and alive. They want to have a better sex life. They want to have more vitality and joy. So, you may be pulled by what you're longing for. You may be pulled by or pushed by your fear of what could happen if you don't make changes. But whatever it is, stay in touch with that why and let it be a fire inside you that's bigger than your habits. And that can help you make new habits that over time get so easy that you wouldn't even think twice about it. I mean, for me at this point, having been eating healthfully my whole life, it isn't hard to eat well. It's really, really easy. But obviously that's taken a lot of practice. And, a person who plays the flute every day, even if they're not naturally talented, after a while, they're going to sound pretty decent, but you have to put in the work. And here's the thing, putting in the work when you're stressed and exhausted, who wants another job? Who wants, especially one that's going to take away pleasure? So you have to see the big picture and remember what's at stake. Because I don't know anybody who wants to get Alzheimer's. I don't know anybody who wants to get cancer or heart disease, or who wants to live in constant pain or have trouble sleeping or have aches and pains all day long. So at the end of the day, when you realize what's at stake, you're like, oh my gosh, healthy food is so worth it. And all it is a bit of investment now, and your body will thank you for the rest of your life.
I think that's brilliant roundup, actually.
Just to end with, because I'm conscious of the fact that we've taken up nearly an hour of your time, I wonder if you could just share 3 tips with our listeners about how they could be more healthy and more sustainable at the same time.
Sure. Well, the big principles of the food revolution diet plan that I advocate in 31 Day Food Revolution, my book, are: number one, eat more whole plant foods. Number two, eat less animal products, especially from factory farms. Number three, eat less sugar and processed junk. And number four, source consciously. So focus on fair trade, organic, local brands that you respect, farmers markets. Try to support manufacturers and growers that are doing the right thing, that are aligned with your values. And when you put all that together, it's actually fairly simple. You want to base your diet around whole plant foods that are consciously sourced. And the good news is that doesn't just help you, it also helps the planet. According to the latest research, most of our agricultural land on this planet, more than 70%, in fact, is going to animal agriculture. If just theoretically the whole world went vegan tomorrow, which of course is not going to happen, but let's just play with that for a second, we'd free up instantly an area of land equal to the United States, China, European Union, and Australia combined. That's how much land would instantly be saved from cattle pasture and land that's growing grain and soy to feed to livestock. And so that land could go to forest. It could go to, sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere. It could go to wind farms and solar farms. We could potentially reverse climate change just with changing our agricultural practices to be regenerative instead of polluters and carbon emitters. And the impact of that is immense. We could sequester carbon in the soil and get it out of the atmosphere, and we could build a more livable world for future generations. So that's what's at stake: the future of the rainforest, the future of our global climate stability, the future of our aquifers, and our ability to have water to grow our food, all hinge on how sustainably we use our resources to grow food today. And the number one, by far, way that we can create sustainability is by not cycling calories up the food chain through livestock. There's immense waste. It's a protein factory in reverse. And when you take grain or soy or even grass and you feed it to livestock, you are turning most of those calories and turning them into hoof and hide and bones and manure and heat and energy the animal uses to move around, not into flesh. And so if you're interested, as I am, in a livable world for future generations, in walking lighter on the earth, in learning how to live sustainably, and in being a part of the solution in this world, then the number one thing you can do as an individual is to eat less or no animal products. And by the way, that's the same dietary pattern that, when you base your diet around whole plant foods, is shown in tens of thousands of studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals to be best for your health. So it's a true win-win.
It's a win-win. It's absolutely win-win. I was about to say that, and that's what's brilliant about it. And also, sometimes we feel that we don't have any power as people. What can we do? We can't save the planet. What can we do? I can't do anything. I need my electricity. I need this, I need that. But actually, just as you've just eloquently put, if you became plant-based, you would be doing everything. And if everybody could do it. I mean, I wonder do you know the stats are on how many people worldwide are actually plant-based?
Well, it depends how you define plant-based. In fact, according to some studies, a majority of people in the industrialized world want to eat less animal products. And, I think the number of vegans is somewhere around 4% in the US, which is 4 times what it was a decade ago, by the way. I don't know in the UK, but certainly it's accelerating.
Because it feels like it's spreading, doesn't it? It does feel like it is accelerating.
It is. There are more vegans, there are more vegetarians, there are more pescatarians, there are more flexitarians, there are more omnivores who are eating less meat across the board. And of course, the spread of the plant-based meat alternatives is also helping, because people don't have to compromise on flavor or menu even, when they can go get a vegan burger, that tastes just the same. That's highly processed and may or may not be healthy, but it's certainly good for the planet and good for the animals.
Yeah. And it's a good transition food as well, sometimes for people, that are real hardcore meat eaters. But I just want to say thank you. For those of you that are listening, Ocean Robbins has a website. Is it called The Revolution?
The Food Revolution.
The Food Revolution.
Foodrevolution.org is the website.
Yeah.
And 31 Day Food Revolution is the book.
And I would just want to really recommend that book, especially for beginners who don't know where to start and are completely confused and paralyzed. As we said at the beginning, it completely demystifies. You really get to the facts and to the roots of what is actually the truth. I really, really highly recommend that. I just want to say thank you. I've just listened, just like an absolute awe. You're so inspiring. So thank you. And it really does. It's made me think about a lot of things that we need to change here as well, especially with kind of influencing children's behavior around food and stuff. So thank you so much and for sharing your upbringing and such personal things as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ocean.
Great to be with you both. And for everyone listening, thanks for your attention and for all the ways you participate in the food revolution.
This episode has been sponsored. We have a sponsor
We have
this
a
week.
sponsor. We're very excited. So who's our sponsor, Sharon?
Our sponsor is the Gavin Sisters Corporate Wellness.
Oh, yes, we're very strict about who sponsors us.
Yeah, they have a strict vetting process. We just don't want to go with anyone. We don't want to ruin the brand's image.
No, because of that, we're actually sponsoring ourselves. The Gavin Sisters Corporate Wellness. So what effect does wellness have on productivity? How does team wellbeing improve profitability? And can corporate companies afford not to know these answers? So we looked at these questions. You know, for any wellness culture to take effect, it needs to start from the top, because habits are shaped by environments and environments are shaped by leaders. In our Wellness Day, we provide leaders with the tools and information they need to shape cultures for greater wellness and ultimately greater productivity.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's not too Gwyneth Paltrow. It's very down to earth. It's very rooted in science. We're getting reports back now from companies that we've worked with, the likes of George Asda, Barclays Wealth, the Daisy Group, how these days are impacting their productivity, their culture, their wellness, and their overall mental health and well-being of their companies.
If you're interested in our corporate wellness packages, do get in touch at hello@gavinsisters.co.uk or visit the website gavinsisters.co.uk. You've been listening to the Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. If you enjoyed the show, please follow us, share, spread the word. It will really help. And obviously, if you didn't like it, then keep stum. We're single mums.
If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. Please do drop us an email at thegavinsisters@gmail.com.